It's going live, baby.
Welcome and thanks for spending the next 30 minutes with us during your lunch break. I'd like to thank you for attending our live lunch and learn on the topic of email compromise. A little housekeeping here. If you look at your screen, you will see a Q&A section. Enter any questions you have during the presentation, and I will address them at the end of this live session. My name is Michael Goodwin. I'm the COO for Server at Work. I've worked in information technology for over 25 years. I'm a Microsoft Certified Systems Administrator and an ISACA Certified Information Systems Auditor. As a part of my role with Server at Work, I help set our policies and procedures for incident management, and in particular, our cybersecurity training and responses. I look forward to sharing some information and some insight from my experiences with you all today. Our session today is about email compromise. Over 90% of cyber attacks come from email. The attacks like we see in movies where cyber criminals are in their basements and have their Mountain Dew out and they're furiously typing away on their keyboards. They're trying to bore their way into a network. That's a rare targeted experience. That doesn't really happen anymore. Email is much easier and it's a lot cheaper for cyber criminals to exploit. Typically, what we see in an email compromise attempt is what we call phishing. So phishing is an email attack where cybercriminals blast out emails to email addresses. It may have an attachment, but more frequently, there's going to be a link in there, and the recipient of the email is encouraged to open that file attachment or that link. If the recipient opens the file that's attached, maybe it's an Excel file or an Adobe PDF, there's typically a dangerous macro that's attached to it, and that's going to execute silently and deliver a payload on the computer, and it does its bad deeds. More frequently, though, we see web links in those phishing emails. And these links are disguised to look like legitimate vendor links. So it's going to look like a link from Adobe or Microsoft or Dropbox or PayPal. And the link goes to a website designed to look like that vendor site. And so the email recipient is encouraged to enter their credentials into that site. So maybe their PayPal creds, or they go to Dropbox and then it redirects to a single sign-on for Microsoft 365, asking for those 365 creds. And when you enter them in, the cyber criminal now has the username and password, and they store that for future use. So in both scenarios, the cyber criminal has gone phishing. They're using the email as the phishing line, and that link that you need inside the email is the bait. And of course, you're the fish that they're trying to catch. So does this work? Yeah, it works really, really well. The FBI estimates that over 250,000 people fell victim to phishing attacks in 2020 at a cost of nearly $2 billion. Before we take a deeper dive into dealing with email compromise, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. And what is this? Well, it's a simple question. Why can't we just stop this? With so many victims and with such a great cost of businesses, why is email compromise so hard to stop? Globally, businesses spent over 123 billion with a B on cybersecurity in 2020. That's more than the entire gross domestic product of oil-rich Kuwait. That's 0.15% of the entire world's wealth spent on cybersecurity. So with so much money poured into cybersecurity, how is it that some bad guys in North Korea are still compromising email accounts and stealing credentials and stealing personal and private information? And of course, the ultimate target, they're stealing money. Well, like any successful attack, email compromise uses the very nature of the product as a weapon against it. So the cyber criminals know we need to receive email. We need to receive email from our coworkers, from our contacts, peers, and of course, we receive email from people that we don't necessarily know. We need easy access to that email. The more email security is tightened up, the more legitimate emails that get blocked, and that impedes business and that costs money. And of course, we need this fast. And as we said, blocked emails waste time. And then, of course, we have the users themselves. Users have certain powers. Users can open email. Users can click on links in email. And of course, users can open files that are attached to email. Cyber criminals know that we've got that power. They know we need those emails. And so if a cyber criminal can make an email look legitimate, and they can put some company logos in there, they can put some nice looking web addresses in there, then it can pass the glance test. And a busy person will click a link and absently enter their credentials for the 10th time that day and not think much of it when the web page just redirects them to a blank page. In 2020, Google registered over 2 million phishing websites. Anyone with a keyboard who wants to pay 15 bucks a year can register a website. Cyber criminals are creating phishing websites at the rate of nearly 6,000 pages per day. So every time a security company blocks a phishing link, thousands more are generated that same day to take its place. This is a game of cat and mouse, and really it's amazing what cybersecurity products can accomplish facing the massive numbers of cyber attacks that happen daily. Machine learning and AI, they're helping a lot, but the battle really is in the hands of you, the end user. No matter how many attacks are blocked, that next one might end up in your email inbox, waiting for you to be busy, clicking that link to open a file, or going to a phishing website. So now that we know what a phishing attack is and we understand the magnitude of the challenge, let's dive down into the anatomy of the attack so we can better understand how we need to respond to it. Where does the attack come from? Mostly the attacks are coming from overseas. Primarily the attacks are coming from North Korea, Russia, China, Eastern Europe, and the Southeast Asian region. Some attacks are state sponsored, some attacks are state sanctioned, and some are just allowed because they antagonize the rest of the world. A launching pad for many of these attacks is a subsection of the internet called the dark web. The dark web is a part of the internet that is largely hidden from the public and is not registered on regular search engines like Google. It uses a special web browser called Tor, and that's spelled T-O-R. So Tor routes web pages and traffic through thousands of anonymous servers all over the globe. These servers are operated by participants of the dark web. This creates anonymity for the users of the dark web. Not everything on the dark web is illegal. Some people just don't trust governments and they don't trust businesses, and they believe that their internet traffic should be unmonitored and it should be free. And an estimated 90% of the participants on the dark web fall into this category. But then there's the other element, the cyber criminals, and they use the dark web to buy and sell their ill-gotten gains. On the dark web, a 13-year-old with a fraction of a Bitcoin could buy, say, 250,000 social security numbers stolen from a hospital breach. They could buy thousands of credit card numbers stolen from a paywall vendor, their unpatched server maybe. They can buy turnkey kits on the dark web that'll run their own ransomware campaign, like an expert or a pro. They can buy billions of email addresses, credentials, and passwords. So let's recap, and we'll generalize here. An attack starts with a bad actor. They're in a country that's friendly to cyber criminals, and maybe they spent $200 of Bitcoin on the dark web to buy 300,000 business email addresses that came from a security vulnerability on a vendor's website that exposed some customer records. I also like this dark web slide. It's kind of scary. So we'll keep reusing this as we go through here. Hopefully it's got your attention. So let's kind of look at the anatomy of a generic attack. There's a lot of different scenarios here, but this is one of the most common. So the bad actor sets up a simple mail server and goes through the procedures to properly register it as a legitimate sender with Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, all the big mail traffic people. And for all purposes, it looks like a legitimate business needing to send some mail. The bad actor then registers a $15 website domain. Maybe they get crafty and it looks like a PayPal domain or a Dropbox domain. Maybe they replace an O in the name with a 0 or something like that to make it look really similar. Or maybe they just use a random cheap domain name that they can get, and they rely upon recipients' hastiness to click the link rather than carefully examine the website. Then they buy a web kit from the dark web. And the web kit has maybe some pre-built Dropbox login pages or PayPal pages or Google or Microsoft or Adobe pages. And with that kit might come an email formatted to look exactly like an email from one of those vendors. So they've got a phishing website, it's registered, and then they quickly install that web kit that they've got to look like a vendor's website. And now to the casual observer, everything looks legitimate and the site is ready to harvest credentials from people. So next they're going to upload those 300,000 business email addresses that they've got on the dark web. And now they've got a turnkey campaign ready to launch an email compromise, all for $200 and some Bitcoin, completely anonymous, ready to go, can be done in less than a day. So they get everything loaded and they click send and away we go. We've got 300,000 emails that go out. They'll go out over the course of days, maybe weeks. They're trying not to attract attention with these weird emails going out from the internet providers. So these emails are going to hit the inboxes of the recipients, and some recipient boxes are going to block them outright. Some of them will be able to use some IP information to block some of the emails coming in. There might be some rules and things on those security systems that block these emails coming in, but some are going to get through. Here's an example here that came out in the last few months that looked like a DHL on-demand delivery. So this is one that did get through a lot of filters. And an observant or a cautious recipient will see this email, they'll pass their security trained eye over it, and they'll note that this email was unsolicited and the sender address is oddly formatted. Whenever they hover over the link, it reveals a web address that has nothing to do with DHL. And most people are just going to see this email and they're going to delete it and they're going to go about their day. And this happens to people several times a day, several times a week. They just get phishing emails and they delete them. And one selfish plug here, it's on the Serve at Work social media. We post screenshots like this, and we point out all the telltale signs of these things. We do this several times a month. So if you're on our social media, you should be able to stay up to date with some of these latest attacks and attempts here. So check us out online. But we'll get back to the slide here. So there are also the unfortunate victims, and these people are using this product maybe daily. They are expecting this service or this file from this vendor, and they're busy and they're multitasking and they don't really scrutinize the email carefully, and they just simply click that track your shipment here button. And what happens next? The nice convenient redirect to the single sign-on. It goes to a convincing page and it's looking and it's asking for credentials. It's asking for your Gmail. It's asking for your Microsoft 365 credentials, your PayPal, something like that. And then that busy person who's entered those credentials 10 times that day enters them in again on this site, and it maybe goes to a blank page. And the person's thinking, good, I was too busy to deal with something anyway, so no harm, no foul, let's move on. And they go about their day and they completely forget about it. But in the background, something is happening. Those credentials are now stored in that cyber criminal's database. And that criminal now has a way to offline, remotely, directly access your email account, and you have been phished. So the cyber criminal leaps into action. They're able, like I said, to remotely log into your mailbox. They can read your email. They can access your calendar and your contacts. They'll take the wheel and directly start sending email from your account. So now you, in quotes, are sending the email. Depending on the skill of the cyber criminal and the nature of the attack and the job role of the person who's compromised, there are usually two courses of action that the criminal is going to take. If the compromised account and that person lacks financial access or access to sensitive information, then their account is often used to try to reach out and compromise other people. So they basically become a host. The cyber criminal is going to launch more attacks using your legitimate account now, and they're going to do that to try to compromise your coworkers, your contacts, your clients. Those people who get those emails from your account, they trust you, they know you, and you, in quotes, are sending that email to them. So they are now more likely to open the message and become compromised. If your job role gives you financial access or access to sensitive information, that's the jackpot. The criminal's looking for you. The criminal is going to use your account to try to redirect client payments and solicit bank transfers. You are the ultimate goal. That CFO, accountant, someone authorized to move money. That is the prize. So let's quickly recap here. We've got a cyber criminal, and they built their criminal empire for $200 in Bitcoin, completely anonymous. They're operating outside US jurisdiction. They've sent over 300,000 emails, and at an estimated 0.0015% success rate, they've compromised 450 accounts. So now we've got several hundred businesses in crisis mode. Now, people do change their passwords frequently, hopefully. And so cyber criminals don't wait and they don't sit long on those harvested credentials. Often the same day or within a couple days of an account being compromised, the cyber criminal is using those credentials to access that compromised account. The mailbox content, so they're reading the mail and they'll research you online. They're going to find out who you are. They're going to do some simple social media search. They're going to look for you on Facebook. They're going to look for you on LinkedIn, on Twitter, to get a better understanding of who you are. Who is this person that they've compromised? Your job role noted on LinkedIn. Does this job role receive solicitations? Can it make payments? Can it authorize payments? Can it redirect payments? So you've got a bad actor and they're continents away, and they end up knowing a lot about that compromised person, and they use this to their advantage. The criminal is careful not to reveal their access. They're going to create mailbox rules inside your mailbox to hide and redirect their sent emails. They're going to create mailbox rules to delete replies from your recipients. So if someone replies and says, "Did you send this?" You're not even going to see it. They're going to have rules in place that are going to take those and delete those messages or redirect them to a hidden folder. The bad actors, they're going to start directly emailing and corresponding with your contacts as you. They're going to look to solicit and receive payments from your contacts. And this can take days or weeks to execute. And there can be email threads that could be going on for days, weeks, with responses back and forth, getting these payment redirections worked out. And the victims, they think they're corresponding with you, so they have no idea that these payments are going to end up getting redirected to an overseas bank account. And that's usually whenever people find out that this has happened, is a payment's been made, you never received it, they get a late notice, 30 days later, they say they paid it, and then all of a sudden realization hits. So that's whenever on the financial side, that's what happens. But most often, people learn that they are compromised from one of their email contacts. When the cyber criminal sees the compromised mailbox as a launching pad for more attacks, they're going to use that account to send out messages to your coworkers and peers to solicit them. Again, they're looking for people who have financial access. That's the prize. So let's get to that dreaded phone call, because this is usually how this happens. An email is going to go to one of your contacts. Maybe they replied back to you asking if this is legit, didn't hear from you, so they're going to pick up the phone. And they're going to say something like, "Hey, I just got an email from you. Did you send this DHL tracking message?" You, of course, are going to say, "What? No, I did not send that." Well, the contact's going to let you know that they clicked the link in there thinking it was legit from you. It brought them to their Microsoft 365 login page, and it wants their credentials. They think that your email's been hacked, and it has. It's been phished. So what do you do next? Well, you stop immediately and you have to contact your IT. So now you get to see the computer on fire and the nerds running everywhere. And so the first thing they're going to want to do is they're going to want to localize this compromise. So they're going to lock your email account. They're going to lock that account access so nobody can log into it. The IT department's going to change your email password. They're going to assist you with changing other system passwords and access passwords. Some they can change for you, some they'll instruct you that you'll need to change for yourself to get those changed. And then they're going to ask you to change online system passwords and some other systems that only you know that you have access to, maybe banking, things like that. You'll need to get in and start changing all those passwords as well. The next step, and this usually happens within 30 minutes to an hour, is the remediation phase. So IT is going to find the compromising email. They're going to use tools like message tracing on the mail server. They're going to go back and find what was the original compromising email so they can learn and study more about it. And then they're going to look through your mailbox and they're going to start remediation. They're going to remediate mailbox rules, all those mailbox rules we talked about that are hiding the compromised account and the activities of the bad guys. They're going to find those. They're going to delete those. They're going to look for additional compromises in your email system. And IT is going to determine if other systems may have been compromised. And they can usually do this because the attacks usually are bought and sold on the dark web. Cybersecurity companies are researching these, and they get a better understanding of what the payloads are, what the purpose is, what the capabilities of an attack is. And so your IT department is going to be able to have access to this information. And after they correlate the compromising email to the type of an attack, then they can understand the scope of what it's trying to do to see if it's just limited to your email box. Is it just trying to get money, or is it maybe trying to get access to maybe some other systems, and everything needs to get expanded out and additional work needs to get done. So now we come to your part of the process, your part to run, and this is repair. So IT is also going to look using message traces to see if your account was used to contact your clients on this matter and to contact other contacts, specifically to try to phish those other people. And so they should be able to export a list of all these people that were contacted and when they were contacted. Now, this is a part of repair, also addresses reputation management, and this is where your reputation and your company's reputation comes in. Courtesy says that you make attempts to contact and warn those phished by your account. And this can be hard to do because IT may still have your account locked down. They still may be doing remediation on it. They may be having to do some other forensics on that account. So if you have access back to your account, then maybe you can just start emailing those people and letting them know, hey, my account was compromised. I got phished. Please disregard any emails I got. IT can give you maybe some information about what those emails look like, so you can help aid your contacts in finding those. If you don't have access to your mailbox, the only other way to get around this is to start making those phone calls, to pick up the phone, to prioritize who was contacted, and to start just reaching out to them and making those courtesy phone calls to let them know, to help protect them. IT is going to put together an incident report as well. Forensics becomes a part of this. If critical information was stolen or financial damages occurs, law enforcement is typically going to be involved. Your compliance, your management, and IT together are going to contact the law. It's typically going to be the FBI who handles these matters. If the damage is large enough, or if you have a cybersecurity insurance policy, then they're also going to need to be contacted. Again, IT, along with your compliance and your management, would be able to start executing your cybersecurity insurance policy. This can sometimes help with remediation, damages, forensics, things like that, and business losses as well. So again, in the cases of law enforcement, financial damage, if insurance is involved, measures must be taken to preserve evidence and the compromise for the third party examination. So no changes can really be made. Things just have to kind of get locked up and put away. Examination can happen by IT to see what's kind of happening, to help with this and help with the remediation. And of course, they create reports for law enforcement and cyber, but also that information can't be changed. It needs to be left in place. So if the FBI is involved, if a local law enforcement gets involved on their examination, they should be able to see it as it is, not with no changes to that information. So forensically, IT is going to examine the compromise and try to establish the who, what, when, where, how, and why of the attack. And this delay, this forensics and remediation and the return of it's going to delay the return of the account to the user. And so it may be necessary to put a hold on that account. And if that happens, you may have to create a whole new account and start from scratch with none of your information just to get back to work again. It's extremely inconvenient. So the cost of compromise, what's the ultimate goal here? Well, it's money. 4.3 billion was lost in the U.S. in our 4.3 billion was lost in productivity and money in the U.S. In 2020. And this is the goal. Cyber criminals are rarely caught. Money is rarely returned. This form of attack is safe and it's cost effective for criminals. Another cost of compromise is reputation. You work hard to build trust with your clients and your contacts and your vendors. And so, reputation can be harmed depending on how you handle the situation. There were over 790,000 complaints of email compromise in the US in 2020. This was reported to the FBI. And it's safe to say that your client, these contacts, if they weren't one of those 790,000 people, they know someone who was. And so they understand that this can happen. And so hopefully there's a little bit of maybe empathy there as far as that goes, but it only goes so far. It all depends upon how you respond to that compromise. Did you contact your contacts in a timely manner? Were you courteous to them? Did you provide them information to help them prevent them from having their own compromise? That goes a long way to keeping their trust in this difficult situation. And then finally, there's productivity. A compromised person is usually out of work for a minimum of several hours, if not a day, sometimes many days, sometimes a week, maybe. So there's a lot of productivity impact as a part of this. That person's going to have their accounts locked out. They're going to have to change passwords. They're going to have to spend time consulting with IT, management, maybe insurance people. And of course, they've got to contact their clients and their contacts, and that all eats away at their time and productivity. So there's the big cost there as well. So let's recap again. So this is what an email compromise looks like. It starts out with a guy with a couple $100 burning a hole in his pocket in Bitcoin in Southeast Asia, and it ends up with your mailbox sending out over 500 emails to your coworkers and contacts, all pointing the finger back to you that you gave up your credentials in a phishing email. There's no happy conclusion to this session. If this happens, it's going to be painful. It's going to be costly. It's going to be potentially embarrassing, and it's tough. An email compromise just plain stinks, and it does happen all the time. But it is avoidable. You and your coworkers, you are the best and last line of defense. So these compromises typically only happen because a person allowed it to happen or made it happen by clicking that link. So let's go back to that DHL email that's been going around for the last few months. There's always a telltale sign that an email is a phishing email. Some are obvious, like a poorly crafted sender address. You can see on this one, that is obviously not a DHL email address. So let's scrutinize it. If we hover over that link, and you can see in the screenshot, we hovered over it, and that is obviously not a DHL website. Again, this looks obviously a phishing page. So scrutinize the emails. Every email, no matter who it's from, even if you know that person, scrutinize it before you click or interact with anything. You should also develop office policies around financial transactions. Don't permit bank information or payment changes to be solicited over email. Don't make payments over email. Require phone calls to verify changes, especially unexpected or unsolicited changes. Pick up the phone, call the person directly, and verify that. You can also protect your accounts online by using multi-factor authentication. This adds more security to the login process. So even if your credentials get compromised, they still would need to have your phone or something like that so that they can enter in some codes whenever you log in. You should be running phishing testing campaigns against your employees. And a lot of people don't like it because the whole point here is to try to trick those employees into getting phished, and then they get redirected into some quick training and remediation. But it works. It makes people more on guard whenever they know that somebody's trying to trick them all the time to open up phishing email. Now, a common mistake that people make though is they just let the campaigns happen, and then if somebody gets tricked, nothing happens to them. These reports do need to be brought to management and HR for remediation. We do need to make sure that people are doing their training after they do it, after they get tricked and phished. And if it's people are repeat offenders, there's obviously something going on there, and HR usually needs to get involved on this to try to make sure that they're staying secure and obeying company policies, and perform security awareness training for all employees on a regular basis. Um, the threats, they just change too often. And so we have to mind training, update training, and training should happen frequently to keep everybody on top of their game as far as security awareness training goes. So thanks everybody for that. We did have to take this session online, but let's see here if we did get a few questions emailed to us. So that's a good one. All right. So a friend had an email compromise and they swear that they were never phished. Is this possible? Um, yeah, it's possible. The most common way that this could occur is sadly, actually another bad security practice. Um, so if a person uses the same password or a similar password across many accounts, this can happen. So let's say I have a Spotify account, and of course they've got my email address and I've got a password for that account. And then I use that same email address and I use that same password on my Netflix, my Amazon, my Microsoft 365 accounts, my Gmail account. Or I use a similar password pattern. So I change a number or a letter or change a special character in there, but overall it's basically the same password. And let's say, and this did happen, there was a breach, a security breach, and some Spotify accounts, customer accounts, got leaked out, and they got ended up on the dark web for sale. And so the bad guys, they've got there's dark web programs and kits that are written that you can take an account from one person or one vendor like Spotify, and you can test it against banks and the Amazons and Netflixes and all those people, and see if the same password works or if password variations work. And then they collect all that information and rebundle it and then put it again for sale on the dark web. So now you've never actually been phished, but you've used the same password or similar password across multiple vendors. One of those vendors got a vulnerability and it got exploited and their data ended up on the internet. Now they've got access to all of your other accounts. So you weren't technically phished, but bad password security practices can allow that to happen. So yes, that can happen like that without being phished. Let's see. So another question, this is kind of related. We kind of talked about this. How does someone notify coworkers if their account is locked, like during remediation, I guess, by IT? There's not going to be an easy answer to this. It's just one of the big drawbacks of being compromised is the time sink of notifying all of those people. And if you can't do it by email, really the only other way, unless they're there in the office and you can just walk around, but surely contacts outside of your organization were contacted as well. You're just going to have to pick up the phone and just start calling people and let them know what's going on. It really goes a long way to reputation harm and reputation protection. It's the courteous thing to do. Let's see. Question: do we need our own incident response policy? Good question. Yes, so you do. We at Serve at Work have our own incident response policy that we exercise if a client has a security incident. All IT providers should have this. They should train on it. They should practice it all the time. But every company should also have their own incident response policy. Your IT is going to handle the technical side of this, but there is a lot of things that need to happen inside your organization whenever a security incident happens. Was finance involved as a part of it? Was employee information leaked? Was customer information leaked? Those type of things. So if those departments are involved or that information was involved, you need to have policies and a plan that says this is what needs to happen. During a security incident, and email compromise is very chaotic. It's very stressful. You don't want to be figuring this stuff out as you're going along with that incident. You do want to make sure that you've got a plan for that in place, that it's documented, that everybody knows about it, and that you in service on it, and that you actually practice it. Practice does make perfect. And again, this we can see now this happens a lot to people. So do have an incident response policy in place on your side. Well, okay, so that's the questions that we've got. So again, this is email compromise. Thanks for sharing your lunch with me. If you need any more information or help developing your own incident response policy, I invite you to reach out to your Serve at Work account manager and we can get the ball rolling and help you out with that. So until next time, this is Michael Goodwin from Serve at Work saying goodbye. Thank you.